In this video, we'll be installing one of the Tusk UTV horn and signal kits. These kits were designed to provide your machine with front and rear turn signals, a license plate mount with light, a horn, and rear view mirrors. Each of these components have a universal design and will work on almost any side-by-side or UTV. If making your side-by-side street legal is your primary goal, it will be your responsibility to ensure this kit is compatible with your local and state laws. Each Tusk UTV horn and signal kit comes complete with a wiring harness, turn signals, a horn, 2 rear view mirrors, license plate mount with light, flasher relay, dash switches, and indicator lights. It's important to remember that the install process will slightly vary with each machine, but today we're demonstrating the install process on a Polaris RZR 800. So to begin, we'll start by routing the wiring harness onto the machine. To do that, we need to remove the front hood, and we'll also pull that front cargo box. That's going to reveal some of the stock wiring. Moving back, we're going to pull both the seats, along with that center console piece. We'll also pull the cab clutch access cover. And now we can grab the wiring harness and, starting from the front, route it down and back towards the rear end of the machine. The goal is to pick a path that's protected from any heat or potential rubbing or anything else that could damage the harness. A lot of times the stock wiring harness route is the best route to follow. So once you have the harness ran, just leave it sitting loose for now. We'll be securing the harness later in the video. The next step is to decide where you want the blinkers mounted. In each kit, we provided you with 8 signals, which you can choose to mount however you want. It's best to look for an easy to see, highly visible spot for each blinker, and then measure and mark each location before you drill the holes. Make sure you've got them marked exactly where you want them to be, so you only have to drill each hole once. We're using the provided 3/4 inch spade drill bit to drill both these holes. Once you've got them drilled out, it's a good idea to clean up the edges with a knife or razor blade before installing the blinkers. So to install these recessed blinkers, you'll first remove the rubber grommet and install that into the hole first. Once that's in place, go ahead and install the signal wires first into the hole and align it so that the word top is located at the uppermost part of the light. Repeat those same steps to install the other front right blinker. And then we'll move over and drill both the front left blinker holes. Once those are drilled, go ahead and install those blinkers the same way we did the first ones. And with the front blinkers now installed, we can connect them to the harness. To do that, we'll run the orange and one of the white wires over to the left blinkers. And again, we're avoiding any potential heat or impact damage areas for these wires. Underneath, we'll connect the 2 black wires to the double connector on the orange wire. And then connect both the white blinker wires to the double connector on the white wire. Next, we'll run the light blue and the other white wire over to the right blinkers and connect both black wires to the light blue wire. And then connect both white wires to the white wire from the harness. Again, we're going to tie these wires up later so we can move back and install the rear blinkers. Carefully mark them out like we did the fronts, and using the same steps, drill and install each of the rear blinkers. With those installed, we'll connect them the same way we did the front blinkers. So we'll run the orange and one of the white wires over the left blinkers and connect both black leads to the orange wire, and then connect both white blinker leads to the white wire. After those are connected, we'll run the light blue wire and the other white wire over to the right blinkers, connecting both blacks to the blue and both white leads to the white wire. Next comes the license plate mount and license plate light. There's a number of different ways and locations to mount this plate mount, and these will obviously vary with each machine. On most all machines, you'll have space on the rear plastics to drill and attach the mount. To do this, you'd simply hold up the mount in the desired location, mark the top 2 holes, and drill. Then just use the provided hardware to bolt on the mount, with the Tusk license plate light used as one of the top bolts. Since we're running one of the Tusk rear racks on this machine, we'll be taking advantage of the integrated license plate mount on bottom of the rack. So using 3 of the provided bolts, washers, and nuts, we'll attach this mount and then use the Tusk license plate light to fill the remaining mounting hole. Slide the wires through first, and then feed on the provided flat washer and nut onto the back side. With the light now installed, you want to make sure it's facing the middle of the license plate before you go ahead and tighten it down. We can also tighten down the other 3 bolts and then run the 2 wires up and attach them to the wiring harness, connecting the black lead from the light to the black wire from the harness, and then the red lead from the light to the red wire from the harness. Now moving back up to the front of the machine, we can connect the flasher relay to the red and blue wire clip from the front of the harness. And then to mount it, we're just going to zip tie it to the frame. Some people will choose to use Velcro on the back side, or you can also choose to bolt it somewhere as well. Now with that installed, we can move on to installing the horn. For this, you'll want to choose a location that's up and away from any moving parts or heat, and somewhere that'll stay clean and fairly dry as well. This location will vary on each machine, and you'll have to either use an existing bolt or source a new one. We chose an existing hole in this frame support as our mount, so we grabbed an appropriate bolt and nut to attach this horn. After you've got it installed, run both the red and green wires with push-on terminals from the harness and attach those to the terminals on the horn. The polarity of these wires doesn't matter, the horn will function properly either way. The next step is to run all the remaining wires except for the ground wire up behind the dash. These wires are for the switches and indicator lights. So once you have them all ran, you'll need to determine where you want to mount the turn signal switch, horn, and signal indicator lights on your dash. Go ahead and mark those locations out, and then we can drill them. And we chose to drill a small pilot hole for both the turn signal switch and the horn button before we drilled them out with the 1/2-inch drill bit. You may have to clean up these holes a little bit, and then you can go ahead and install that turn signal arrow sticker. With that in place, we'll unscrew the switch cap and nut, and then install the switch from the back side. Go ahead and reinstall that cap nut, and this only needs to be finger tightened. Next we'll install the horn sticker, and then remove that switch cap and install it from the back side. Now just finger tighten that cap nut back on, and we can move up to installing the signal indicator lights. To do that, we'll drill both those marks out using a 5/16 drill bit. Now remove the nut from the back side of one of the indicator lights and install it into one of the holes from the front side, feeding the wires through first. Now you can reinstall that nut onto the back side and finger tighten it down. Repeat those same steps to mount the other signal indicator light. And then we'll move down underneath the dash and connect both those lights to the wiring harness. For the left light, connect one of the red wires to the orange wire with the bullet connector, and connect the other red wire to one of the spots in the dual bullet connector on the black wire. For the right blinker, we'll connect one of the red wire leads to the light blue wire with the bullet connector, and then connect the other red wire lead to the other spot in the dual connector on the black wire from the harness. It should look like this. So next we'll connect the turn signal switch by connecting the darker blue wire to the middle terminal on the switch. Once you've got that, we'll connect the light blue wire to the left terminal on the switch, and then connect the orange wire to the right terminal on the switch. It should look like this when you're finished. Next comes the horn switch, and for this we'll connect the green wire and the black wire from the harness. Again, these don't matter which terminal they're connected to, the horn will work either way. Now we'll move back up to the front of the machine so we can mount the ground wire. For this you'll need to find an existing bolt on the frame that would make a good ground. You may have to rub off a little paint or powder coating in order to make a good connection. And then go ahead and secure that ground wire connector underneath the bolt head. Once you've done that, the next step is to find a key-on power source to power this wire harness. Most all machines come with a power source outlet, which in most cases is a key-on power, This means the positive wire will only have power when the key is turned on. To check and see if a wire is a keyed power source, use a test light, connect the alligator clamp to good ground, and then touch the probe tip to the bare wire. When the key is in the off position, the tool shouldn't light up. When you turn the key on, if the wire now has power, the light in the tool will light up, like you see this one doing. So once you've found a keyed power source, you'll want to grab the supplied splice connector and slide it onto the power source wire, which in this case is an orange wire with a white stripe. From there you can run the red power in wire from the harness through the other wire slot on the splice connector and then crimp it using a pair of pliers. Now just snap the clip over the top so it won't back out, and with the power now hooked up, we're ready to test the kit. So we'll turn the key to the on position and then check the left blinkers first. So just move that signal switch to the left. As you can see, the indicator light is working, so we'll check the fronts. Both those are fine, so are the back blinkers. Now moving back up to the switch, we'll move that signal switch over to the right position, and again you can see that signal indicator light is flashing. So are the front blinkers, and the rear look fine too. And while we're back here, we'll also check the license plate light, and as you can see, this one's working fine. Now go ahead and turn those signals off and test out the horn. And everything's working perfectly. If you find that you did have problems, you'd first want to recheck all your wiring and connections, and then you can also check the inline fuse to the harness as well. So with everything wired up and working properly, we can begin tying up all the wires. We're just using zip ties to secure these wires in place and keep them away from any moving parts or potential damage areas. So we chose to start at the front and then work our way back. Here we're tying the harness to the machine's brake line to keep it away from the front drive line. And we'll continue tying up these wires as we work our way towards the rear end of the machine. And it's usually easiest to just attach the wires alongside the machine's existing wiring. So once you have it all tied up, you can go ahead and start putting the machine back together. We'll start with that rear cab piece, and next comes the center console. After that, we'll reinstall both seats, and finally the front cargo box and hood piece. The last thing that we need to do is install our rear view mirrors. To do that, we'll first install the machine-specific clamp in the desired location on the roll bar. For this kit, we provided you with 2 rear view mirrors that you can mount however you like. We found it's convenient to have a mirror on each side of the machine, along with having one in the middle, like you see here. For this setup, you'd need to purchase one more mirror separately. So now with the clamp in place, we'll go ahead and tighten it down, and then remove the nylock nut from the end of the mirror post and install it onto the clamp. After that, we can tighten the mirror down, securing it into place, and then just repeat those steps to mount the other mirror. And that's all there is to installing one of the Tusk UTV horn and signal kits. If you have any questions about any of these steps, or about installing the kit on your machine, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-336-5437. Rocky Mountain ATV MC is the leader for parts, accessories, and apparel for you and your side-by-side. Thanks for watching.